Hey y'all, for those who don't know me, my name is Dr. Lindsay Briggs. I'm an associate professor at Chico State, and I have almost 2 decades worth of academic study and on-the-ground public health experience. Today, I want to utilize that experience and that knowledge to help our community get a hold and get control of this COVID outbreak. There's a million places I could start, but I'm going to keep this video short because I know we all have a limited attention span right now, and I want to be right to the point. So I'm just going to focus on schools. And since I'm an educator, I figured that was a good place to start since that is my passion and my focus. Right now, we're experiencing a massive second wave of COVID cases. Butte County is in the purple tier, which indicates we have widespread cases across the entire county. Infection rates are climbing. We know that deaths continue to creep up on us. And now the state has issued a regional stay-at-home order that is meant to help alleviate the pressure on our hospitals and especially on ICU capacity of those who are being treated for COVID in our hospitals. This issue affects us all. I agree with a lot of you, and a lot of you are going to say, we can't stay at home forever. Life has to continue. It absolutely does. But the best way for that to happen is for us to work together wherever we can to try and alleviate potential sources of infection wherever possible. One of the places that needs to happen is in our schools. Yeah, kids need school. They need learning. They need connection. They need many other things that school provides. I'm an educator. I would never, ever discount education. Now, clearly, I've dedicated my entire life to this sort of stuff, but I'm also a public health professor, and I know about infection rates and disease spread and about mental health and all these other sort of things. And all of those things point to the fact that we need to be doing something a little bit different and a little bit more flexible for our kids. We need to go back to virtual learning. I know it stinks. It totally stinks. It's not the same as face-to-face school. It's not even close, and I would not ever pretend that. But it is what is going to keep infection rates down. While kids might be at low risk for having huge complications or even dying from COVID, the one thing that they are a high risk of is being an asymptomatic carrier. Being an asymptomatic carrier means that we may not even know that they have COVID, and these kids are going around, they're doing kid things, as they should be, but if they have few or no symptoms, they might be spreading COVID to people that they care about, whether that be their teachers or other school personnel, whether it be their families. That's a really heavy burden for our kids to have to shoulder, both now if they're aware of it or in the future when they think, hey, what was I doing during this time? And am I somebody who contributed to sort of long-term health effects and other sort of things? We're going to have really big problems if kids grow up to realize how much they had an impact that was really without of their control. We know without a doubt that face-to-face interactions is how COVID spreads. Even with best efforts, we're not perfect, right? Humanity is not perfect. People forget that, what is 6 feet and how do I stay 6 feet away from somebody? Our masks slip, right? Masks are this whole new weird sort of things. We get surprised by a sneeze. All of those little things add up and they become infectious sort of agents. Our schools are doing a really great job. They're doing an impossible job. They're trying to keep everybody safe and healthy, but this virus is a really tough cookie. We need to reduce the amount of face-to-face interactions that we're having in order to bring the infection rates down. We have to do this wherever possible because the reality is there's lots of places that we can't. We need to protect those who can't stay home, the essential workers, the people who are staffing our grocery stores, the people in our healthcare centers, our first responders. All of them don't have the choice. And so when we do have a choice, we need to make the sacrifices necessary to be able to keep our kids at home and to do the best practice sort of stuff so that we stop this infection. A lot of people I know are very concerned about the mental health of our children and not being in school. I agree. That's a huge area of concern. I teach mental and emotional health at Chico State. This is one of my areas of passion, so I'm not discounting it at all. But again, as I said, what is the mental health burden of our kids going to be when they are growing up or when they realize that the people around them are dying and it might have had something to do with where they were and what they were doing during this time? That's a really heavy burden for them to be able to bear. If they lose their family, or if they lose a teacher, or if they lose people at their school, that's going to have a huge impact. Grief and recovery and the trauma of losing people is just as serious as a lot of the physical consequences of getting a virus. In addition to going back to online learning, one of the things I want to urge teachers, administrators, and other sort of people, parents, is to adjust their expectations on what schools look like right now. I keep hearing say, our kids are falling behind. And I just want to say, behind what? Behind arbitrary standards that we set up for schools when we weren't in a pandemic, when things were all regular and normal. We're not in a regular and normal time. We're in a pandemic. And so what standards? Well, our standards were created for a time that is not what we're living in. I think we need to be much more flexible with our expectations. Kids should not be spending hours and hours and hours on Zoom. Nobody wants to be doing that. Zoom is great, and it's one of our possible tools, but just sitting there and pretending like normal class is happening in a Zoom session is not really what is learning. It's just silly. We need to focus on connection and the joy of learning and education. We have a really big opportunity right now to step away from sort of standardized testing and to get away from sort of this rigid model of what education is and help kids engage in the delight of learning. We don't need to worry so much about the specifics of what they're learning. Fractions and periodic table and compound sentence structure. Yes, those are important, but moreover, we can show kids right now during this very unique time that learning is fun and it's something that is really enjoyable. We can read for fun, read to each other. That's a great way to create connection. We can have deep conversations that are meaningful and really leave an impact on people in the long term. We can express ourselves through art and through music and through visual sort of stuff, and think about all of these sort of ways. This is a way to get kids to connect. This will keep our kids from falling into despair as they're getting behind on worksheet after worksheet after worksheet, is by loosening up and trying to think about our resources in a creative way to keep our families, our lives, our community safe and healthy. Now, I'm sure there's going to be people who say, you don't have kids at home. Easy for you to say. I hear you. I don't have kids at home. But I am part of this community and I do work from home. And yes, like you, I'm over it too. It sucks and I don't like it. Online teaching stinks. It is not optimal. I would much rather be in my classroom. However, I also know that it's important that we continue to work from home and try and utilize our best efforts. I'm following my own advice. I'm not just focusing on sort of the dry mechanics of academics. I'm focusing on growth and learning and trying to make school as fun as possible and having to change things up in a lot of different ways. I think it's a really important sort of thing to demonstrate to our our college students and even younger students in the K through 12 education. The election just happened. Did you vote for a school board member? Yeah, you probably did. One of the reasons that the school board candidates are something that is voted on by the community is because communities are very much organized around schools. Schools are an integral part of our community. Just because you don't have a kid in school doesn't mean that you shouldn't be concerned about what's going on with your schools and in your communities. These things are vital. We are in an impossible time right now. There are no good answers. There's so many challenges about working from home. There's so many challenges about working from home with kids. There's so many challenges about having kids home and you don't work from home. All of those sort of things are huge, and I get that. And I'm not trying to discount any of those sort of things. I'm not saying this is easy, but I am saying we can survive this if we're working together. And I want our community to survive. All of us. I want teachers and school personnel to feel safe and supported by their community. I want kids to know that we're looking out for them in the long haul. I want our older populations and our health compromised populations to know that we care about their health as well. Part of being a community is valuing everybody in our community, and that includes people without kids and people with kids. We need to work together to come up with solutions that work for everyone. We should give our teachers their support to say, hey, you know what? Let's break out of this sort of status quo, and I want you to use your skills, your passion, what you've learned, what you bring to the table to make school better. What can we do in this time where we say, you know what? Let's not stick with the regular academic standards. Let's be creative. Let's think about how we can use technology in a way that is useful and in a way that makes everybody feel much more connected. Let's help kids learn the joy of learning. Let's help them learn about community care. There's nothing more important to me than teaching our children, hey, by doing these sort of things, we're actually helping to build community and to care for our community. I think that's a really important lesson worth showing our kids. Butte County, more than anywhere else, has had its fair number of issues in the past couple of years. We know more than anyone that community care and resilience requires all of us to take part. I want to urge you to do whatever you can to keep kids at home, to reduce the need for face-to-face interactions, so that we can all get through this pandemic together, and that when we are done and over with, Butte County can continue to thrive and survive as we have for the past couple of years. All right, thanks.